So I'm sitting in the home of Donna Douglas. I've wanted to sit down and speak to Donna for a long time. Donna, you are an amazing person, and I know you are so humble, but this is going to be so much fun getting to know you today. So thank you for finally making this happen. Donna, tell me, where did you start? Let's go back in time here a little bit and just find out, where are you from?
Oh, well, I grew up in Orangeville.
Mm-hmm.
You ask where I started. I was thinking the other day about, I just won this award, right, for the Chamber of Commerce, the Women in Business Award, and somebody said, when did you start blazing a trail? And I said, I think grade 7, when I argued with our school principal about why did just boys get to put the flag up? Why couldn't girls also put the flag up? Yeah. That's where it started.
Well, that's not really...
Orangeville.
You know, and it's funny because when you think about that sort of idea, you know, people nowadays are, well, we're slowly getting good at that. Mm-hmm. But we still aren't quite there.
We have work to do.
Right? Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite quotes from the day you got that award, and I was luckily there to watch you receive that award, and I'm so proud of you, and well-deserved. Well, one of the quotes that day was, if you're asking why we have to have an award day for women, then that's probably the reason we have the awards day for women, because people shouldn't be asking why. Mm-hmm. Because there's still not the equality, there's still not all of that. So you're already sort of projecting this, you know, grade 7, you're already looking at things differently.
Yes, right? I think I was a bit of a, as I say, PIA, you know. Just not causing trouble, but questioning things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think you got maybe that a little bit from your parents? What do you think set that spark for you to get the trail blazing back then?
It's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
We're thinking a lot about my mom right now because she's sort of on the final phase of her journey. And but my parents were both not outspoken to the point of being unpleasant, mm-hmm. but they did raise your consciousness. You know, I remember at dinner one night, my dad, this is a little thing, but my dad said, what's the capital of Ethiopia, Donna? And I said, Addis Ababa. I said it with quite a bit of firmness, you know, because I was sure.
Yeah.
He said, no, it's not. I said, I'm sure it's Addis Ababa as the capital. He said, it's not. And I crumbled. I said, wow, okay. And I got the atlas out and I opened it up and I said, Dad, it is the capital. Addis Ababa is the capital. He said, don't ever let somebody convince you differently of what you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's sort of how the kind of messages I got.
I think it's always been a really good thing to inspire people to challenge authority and to challenge questions and to challenge those sort of things when you're confident in what your answer is and what your belief is. So good for you for that.
Well, and being polite about it, you know.
Yeah, respectful.
Yeah,
always.
Yeah, for sure.
So as that sort of transition, did you ever find that was sort of a spark for you to, you know, start going from there, and there was other things that maybe inspired you? Like what was your next adventure from there?
High school. I fought a lot in high school.
Did you?
Why does the girls' gym not have a seating area for an audience? Why does the boys' gym have all these huge, you know, rows of seats so people can watch the boys' games, but there's no room for anybody to watch the girls' game? Could that be switched now and then?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, other people I'm sure have the thoughts, but then you have to sort of follow it up.
Well, there's the difference, though, between having that thought and then being able to speak it out.
Yeah,
right?
I guess.
And then you having the, you know, the chutzpah to be able to
question.
To question it. And again, with respect.
Yeah. But you know what? We followed that up. This is a long time ago. We're talking the 60s, right? Mid-60s. But we followed that up by saying, okay, we're going to have 2 cheerleading teams. We're going to have a junior team and a senior team. I was very involved in cheerleading. And so we had 2 teams, and we made sure we had 1 team in the girls' gym, 1 team in the boys' gym. And that just raised consciousness.
Yeah.
Nobody'd done that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wasn't rawing. I just was going, well, this doesn't seem right.
Well, it's a matter of fair.
You know?
It's fair.
Yeah. So that's a long time ago, though.
So you're already on the start. Okay, so now you're in high school and you're already making really great positive changes, and you're thinking very clearly and positively.
Well, I also was part of a group that we were in a rural school, so we had a barn and a horticultural course and greenhouses, and I was part of the group that let the cows into the school on Halloween night one night. Didn't tell my mom that for a long time, but 6 cows in a high school.
Oh, wow.
On terrazzo floors wasn't pretty.
Well, I saw a great old quote.
So I just wasn't like totally always good.
Well, they're probably not too difficult to catch when they're on tile, but when they're on grass, you're not going to catch them as fast.
No.
That's really funny. Oh my gosh. So other than letting cows into the school and raising awareness of these unfair things, where I love
You're
that.
going to have that image for a while, aren't you?
I do have
Well,
that.
imagine a cow on a terrazzo floor. Like, that's slippery country,
It is.
right?
Well, you know what? When they release the bulls, the only reason it's not fair and people can get away from them is because they're running on cobblestone. You do that in an open field, everybody would be dead.
Oh, okay. I'll keep that in mind for my next cow release.
There you go. Excellent. Very good. So, so then you go from there. At what point do you decide what it is you want to do for a living? Did it become involved with the way your world was going back then, or what was it that?
Oh, I decided when I was 12. It's as clear today as it was a long time ago. I was going into journalism, and
Nice.
I wanted to write. I felt that that's where my talent lay, and I spent some time researching where to go to school.
Nice.
But that's clearly the best decision. Well, taking typing in grade 11, actually,
Yeah.
because I was in the arts and science stream. You don't need to take typing, Donna. You're going to have somebody who does all this stuff for you. No, I'm going to be a journalist. I need to take typing.
Yeah.
And that's the course I met my husband in, so that was a good decision.
There you go. And I did notice around here you do have quite a few typewriters. You had mentioned.
We
earlier,
do.
but- Yes,
We do.
The old school days, and it's funny because there's nothing like the feel of a typewriter, is there?
No, and in the summer we got out the typewriters and I taught my grandchildren how to make a newspaper, and they drew pictures and we created these newspapers, and I turned to my son and said, "Aren't you happy to see me teaching your children this obsolete system?"
Well, you know what? Records are coming back. People
Yeah.
still like to, well, not coming back. They've been coming back for a while now, but even typewriters. I know people who have actually really enjoyed typing on a typewriter. Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. So now you're into that world. Where was your first real opportunity, your first chance to be a journalist?
Well, my first written piece that was ever published was when in 1964 I was at the airport when the Beatles arrived.
No way.
Yeah. And then I paid $2.50 for a ticket in the Greys at the Gardens to see them. They were this big, because when you're in the Greys, you're a long way away, right?
Yeah, but
But I
still.
wrote about that, and our local newspaper published it. So that was my first published piece.
You got to see the Beatles.
Well, I
Barely.
did, and they didn't bring them into a terminal. They brought them into kind of a drive shed, and so people were waiting down at the terminal, hundreds and hundreds of people. But I was with a guy whose uncle was a fireman at the airport, and so we were taken into where the firefighters lived at the airport.
Yeah.
And so we were here to that window from the Beatles. I just wish I'd had something other than a Kodak Instamatic 124, a little camera.
Way different than the nowadays with
Yep.
the super
Yeah.
high resolution phones.
Yep.
So so you're already off to like a really amazing start here. So you go from there.
Yeah.
Where's your first gig? Where's your first
Well, I went
real
to
job?
Ryerson, took
Okay.
journalism.
Yeah.
And choosing Ryerson, I got a lot of flack because it was not a university. And I could go to Western or Carleton and take journalism, so why was I going to Ryerson?
Yeah.
But I had written letters. In those days, of course, you didn't Google addresses. You went to the library and found a phone book for Vancouver
Yeah.
and looked up the newspaper and sent a letter.
Sure.
So I sent 15 letters to the top dailies in the country, to the city editors, and said, I'm going into journalism. Where do you get your best grads from? Where are your best writers? And 13 people wrote me back, and 11 said, go to Ryerson. So I did.
Awesome.
Made sense to me.
I think so.
And I got a heck of a job, and right out of school with the Kingston Week Standard. Wonderful paper to really cut your teeth on, because it was small enough that I was in court, I was doing features, I was off on military MASH unit things, and because it wasn't I wasn't stuck writing obituaries.
Well, no, that's no fun. Now, what was your real passion, though? Did you have something that you just loved to write about? Was there something that when somebody said, all right, Donna, we're sending you here today, or this is your assignment, that you just got like, that's the giggle?
Not at the beginning, because I remember so strongly walking down King Street towards Queen's University. I was going to do a story with the artistic director of a tent theater that was in a park. And I've never forgotten this feeling. And I thought, wow, I'm walking over, I'm going to sit down for 2 hours and talk to a guy who loves what he's doing, and then I'm going to go back and write about it. How much better can life be than that?
It's really amazing you get to share that message. You get to share somebody's story
Yeah, and to say, this is my living. Like, this is how I'm going to make my living. It couldn't be better, Well,
I think it's one of the reasons I love doing this show.
Yeah.
It's because I get to talk to you and I get to share you with people.
Yeah,
and I'm lucky to do that.
No, it's really good, that opening window, for people. So journalism was great that way.
So how did you transition into Barrie? Where did that invitation come from?
Oh, well, I got married to the guy from grade 11 typing. And he was in television. And so he was having a hard time finding a job. And so I sort of made a list of the papers I preferred to work at, and off he went. We needed a city big enough that it had a TV station and a newspaper. And I didn't know anything in those days about community journalism. I just really knew about the daily business. And anyway, I gave him a list of the papers I preferred to work at, and Barrie was second last on the list because...
But it wasn't last.
No, but because it was, in those days, the Examiner was owned by the Thompson chain, and I didn't really want to work for Thompson. And so I didn't really want to come here. And interesting, because now you could not get me out of here. I would never leave Barrie.
Good.
But so what happened was when he got a job at CKVR, so I came up with him for his final interview, and I stopped into Aurora to see a friend of mine from journalism. And by the time he got back from his interview, I had a job in Alliston at a new paper.
Nice.
But I really wanted, when I got to Barrie, it was to join Ron Tyler and the Barrie Banner and get into community journalism. And that was an unbelievable learning curve. It was wonderful. Imagine. Yeah. But I'm now the photographer and the writer and the editor, and I'm laying out the pages on Tuesday morning. And you're the editor?
Yeah.
No, you're not. You're everything that people are reading. That's you.
Yeah.
And you're not, I wasn't making up and selling ads. That was the only difference.
Now, when was this, time-wise?
That was 72.
Okay, so Barrie's definitely on the list, though, of now places that are on that very up-and-coming. In the 70s, they were one of Canada's most progressive cities. So
that's right, because that's what Les Cook said.
Yeah.
And he was my first interview here. He was running for mayor again.
Oh,
and he coined the phrase, Canada's most progressive city.
Yeah, we had it a few times. We used to compete with Oakville.
Yeah. So that was, I just felt, we came up Essa Road, where the TV station is, over the rise, no development.
No.
Barrie was this 24,000 population little town down in the bowl around the water.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was entering a Christmas card.
It used to be very snow globe, wasn't it?
It was so beautiful. And I thought, wow, why didn't I want to come here? What was my problem? I still didn't know about the banner, and that just made everything great. Although, last 4 or 5 years that I was writing a column, I was really happy to have it first in the Advance and then in the Examiner. So
I love how you describe that bowl, because I remember that drive, and it's still kind of there, but
like
Innisfill's developed a bit.
Like
but
a Christmas card.
Yeah, it's just holding Barrie in its hand.
Yep. Yeah.
So now you're into this writing.
Yeah.
Now we're going to go back to something here. So was there an opportunity for you to kind of have an opinion about maybe how things were with things not being fair and equal?
Yes.
So tell me about
You're
that.
the editor. You're writing editorials. You can say anything, right? But I think I was a little bit ahead of my time because I was doing focus groups. So I would pull together 8 women and we would just talk about what their issues were, you know? And they would say things like, I have a university degree, I have this skill, I cannot get a job. And of course, in the 70s, if you were pregnant, your work was over. Like there wasn't mat leave, there weren't even, Ann Locke was just starting Raggedy Ann daycare, just starting in the late 70s. So anyway, the focus groups really, people expressed their frustration and solutions that were needed. But then I also, Mark Vincer I'd hired Mark as a sports writer. And so this would have been maybe 76, 75, and around there. And I pulled together a group of 8 men and said, Mark, I want you to do a focus group with these guys because they're not going to talk to me. But I have to help you a little bit with your own consciousness raising, but here's what we want to discuss. And, you know, the men were very forthcoming with their frustration around feminism and what's their role and where do they fit now, you know? They don't fit in their dad's role and they don't fit in their son's role and they don't really have a role model. So we were doing a lot of that kind of writing.
Nice. And it's funny because there's people who you say, oh, she's a feminist, or she's a feminist. It's all in the tone, and it's all in your approach.
Well, at the awards lunch, when I thanked all the feminist men for being there.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's good. I grew up with 3 sisters and a mom, and I've got a little girl, and you know what, I'm surrounded now. I'm in the estrogen ocean, right? And there's always women that you do the best you can, right? And I want everybody to do the best that they can, everybody, all the time, man or woman. And I think that is what you want. But it's not what we're getting.
How old is your daughter?
She is 10, and she's an incredible writer, and she wants to do what you do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
she writes really dark Stephen King stuff, though, at 10. It's a little spooky. Yeah.
I don't know if I could do that. But you know, the book that was my driving force when my kids, when we were raising kids, well, I guess you're always raising kids, right? Although my granddaughter pointed out to me recently that as I age, I'm going to become more and more like a baby, and I'll end up with diapers and pablum, and you know, she will take care of me.
It's funny how it goes back to that.
But you know, the book that really helped was a book by one of the Ms. Magazine editors, and it was called Growing Up Free, and it raised my consciousness so much about daughters, about packaging, about all the, you know, the stereotypical things that happen and we have no idea how they happen. So it's made me I was a lot more conscious as the mother of young children. Yeah.
Amazing. So as you're going from the Examiner, the Banner, and you're going from there, at what point did you feel that there was something maybe a little more that you wanted to do?
In '82, a former employee of mine and myself, we bought a national magazine, which we published for 12 years. And it was for the teen market, so the 12 to 19 boys, girls. And it was really head and heart. So we were dealing with things like sexual abuse by your father.
Oh.
You know, things nobody was talking about. Addiction. And we weren't doing it in a way that depressed people, but we were doing it in a way that made young people feel safe and right, that they weren't wrong to feel like they were feeling. But we also did a whole, let's bring the country together, let's give youth a voice, let's do articles on rock groups before they're famous, let's be part of that push.
Sure.
So once, I remember running into Stephen Page and Ed Robertson when they were performing in the Orangeville high school, and I had taught a workshop there that day, and the janitor said, you got to get out of here. There's going to be like naked people here performing tonight. And I said, whoa, that sounds interesting. And he said, yeah, naked people. I'm leaving. And off he went. So I sort of tootled around, went into the library, and there are the Bare Naked Ladies, and they're getting ready to go on stage. And I said, Stephen, Ed, Donna Douglas, TG Magazine. And they went, oh, are you going to do an article on us? I said, yeah, it's time. They were so excited.
Yeah.
But once they were big, we weren't interested. We wanted to be part of the saying to our audience, our teen audience, which was very big,
Yeah.
here is a group you should listen to.
Nice.
Here's Blue Rodeo. Here's Tragically Hip.
Yeah.
I was doing all of those kinds of interviews. That was sort of what the 80s was about.
It's great that you got to talk to the guys from the Bare Naked Ladies, because I remember watching them get onto Speaker's Corner and sing when they were trying to launch their first albums.
Yeah, they were so excited.
I bet.
And
they're great people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just we same thing with Glass Tiger. We had them on our cover, and Jeff Healy and Tom Cochran.
Great people.
Those were all early days, but I was part of that, and that was neat.
And that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
So,
but then I needed to come home.
Yeah. Tell me about
I
that.
was tired. I really wanted to be working locally. I really, it's great to have a national impact, but the internet was coming. We could see that down the pipe. We put the magazine online, and then I thought I guess the best way I can describe it is I needed to come home and get in the trenches.
Yeah.
And so the turning point for the last chunk of my life, which hasn't had really very much to do with writing, I was reading an article, by that point, I'll back up. By that point, I had been self-employed since 78. So it was 93. So I'd had 15 years of self-employment. I'd made a lot of mistakes. I fell down a lot. I got up a lot. And I'm reading this article by Maclean's magazine, and the article says, if 10 people started a business, at the end of the first year, 4 would be left. At the end of the second year, 2 would be left. I'm reading this. This hit me like right between the eyes, and I thought, it's not that people aren't good at what they do. Usually when people become self-employed, they're excellent at what they do. They just don't know how to run a business. And I wonder if I could change that.
Yeah, Anthony Robbins used one of the most important words for small businesses, and that was being resourceful. A lot of people aren't resourceful. They can come up with an idea, but they don't know how to make it happen, and that's...
Yeah, but it's the Revenue Canada stuff. It's the insurance. It's so many aspects about running a business that have nothing to do with doing the business.
Yeah.
And everything to do with running it. Yeah. And so that's when I developed my GrowVantage program.
Yeah,
and,
tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so here was my theory.
Yeah.
I'll bring a lot of people together so it won't be very expensive, right?
Yeah.
If I play a numbers game and I have lots of people in the room, nobody's going to pay very much.
Smart.
I'm going to take a topic like insurance, and I'm going to hire a self-employed broker. Not somebody who works for an insurance company, but somebody who lays awake at night wondering how to pay the bills. That's who I want. And I'll help that person be a good teacher, but I want them to come and share insurance in a practical way with 40 people.
Great.
And then I want somebody who knows how to do a trade show booth to come and talk about doing a trade show and promoting yourself. Then I want, so I developed 25, 26 topics that I thought really mattered, and I hired industry experts, not teachers and not employees. Everybody was self-employed. And that people learned then how to run their business. Yeah. So people would, they'd reach about the 4-month mark, because my program was 10 months long. So they're learning gradually, and they're learning at night, and they can put in practice what they're learning, and then we're going to add the next thing.
Yeah.
And they would come to me at the 4-month mark and say, Donna, what happens to the people who aren't here? Because they started realizing how much they were learning and a difference it was making in their business,
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's funny, because there are business professors and business teachers who've never owned a business, who have never had that sort of stress. And it's like that scene with Rodney Dangerfield when he's sitting down and he goes back to school, and that professor is teaching about business, and he's like, well, then you got to grease this and you got to do that, and he's talking about you'll never break ground without this, and he's talking about all the reality, right? And that's what you did, is you shared the reality of it, that's an eye-opener in itself.
Well, and I got to go back to grade 11 typing, but because I could type, while my speakers were speaking, I was taking a full set of notes and emailing them out. So they had those resources. So we had well over 1,600 people
Amazing.
take the GrowVantage program with a huge success rate.
Awesome.
You know?
Now, one of the things that I've noticed while I've been talking to you, and my eye goes off to the side, is this really cool owl that is sitting beside you. If you can grab your
Little
owl.
Jensen?
His name is Jensen. Can you tell me a bit about what the deal is with all these owls?
Okay. Well, one of the things I do with my clients is I say, when bad things happen, we have an opportunity to mourn, and then we need to look and find the gift in the bad thing. Mm-hmm. And that takes a long time to teach, you know. And I was working on that topic with a group of clients, and at the same time, I was barely able to move because I was waiting for neurosurgery. Oh. So I was still sort of doing a full day, but I was just whipped. And I could, if I laid on my left side, I could bring my pain level down with drugs to maybe a 7, right? But I'm a knitter. I'm a lifelong knitter, but you can't knit with long needles when you're lying on your side. So I picked up short needles, little needles, and I had no plan. None of this had a plan. And I just played around, and then out popped a very funny looking owl, and I got better and better at them. And then somebody asked if I would do one in their corporate colors. So I did, and I took it into her, and she said, "How much do you want for this?" I said, "I don't know." She said, "How do you feel about $50? I said, "Well, okay." She said, "How long did it take you?" I said, 8.5 hours. Takes me 8.5 hours to do every one, you know. And she said, "Well, so she gave me 50. I put it in an envelope, put it in my desk.
Yeah.
And then she said, "If you want to bring more in, I'll sell them. I've got lots of shelf space here." She had a coffee shop, right?
Yeah.
The first month she sold 30. So now I have like $1,500 in my envelope with no plans. Okay. Are you hearing this, Jensen? And so then like the community helps a great deal, but then UCA Branding, they do all my little canvas tags that, and so every owl has its own name, it has its birth date, March 20th, and its number. It's number 820. And then she prints these little cards. Those are the washing instructions. And so I just was doing this. I was waiting for my surgery. And anyway, then I met this kid. It was all accidental. I met this kid.
Yep.
She really wanted to go to school. If life was great, she would go to university and become a teacher, but those resources weren't around, so she was going to take early childhood education. And I said, "Well, are you going to get a student loan, or what are you going to do?" And she said, "Yeah, my dad has been unemployed he's had a rough patch, and I'll get a student loan." So I'm thinking to myself, okay, she's going to take a ECE. She's going to make $14, $15 an hour. How is she going to pay a student? She's like, you know, behind before she's ahead, right?
Yeah.
And then ding, you know, and I wonder if the owls could help her, because I've got this $1,500.
Yeah.
So fast forward, and we're now with our 4th student. We've raised $44,000.
Amazing.
Yeah, and we pay complete tuition. So they know, as long as they're college, because I want them to head for working, and because it's more affordable.
Yeah.
And so they know that if they're in school for 4 years, their tuition's paid.